Texans stay quiet at the trade deadline. Was that the right decision, or will that backfire? We talk about that and have an overall conversation of where the Texans are now that the contenders have gotten better. More on today's show.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Texans fans? I'm Credential Media member and Texans football analyst John, some sports guy Hickman, alongside Credential Media member and the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sars Barfield. Thank you guys for making us your first listen of the day and for being an everydayer of the show. You guys are a part of the Locked On Texans and Locked On Podcast Network family, your team every day. Today we're talking about the Texans staying silent at the trade deadline. They made one move, and a move I think a lot of us was kind of scratching our head at, but being silent, staying silent was at the right or wrong move. Sarge, is this roster going to be good enough to compete with the elites in the AFC and then eventually in the NFL if they want to make it to the Super Bowl? And we look at the second half of the year. That's a very important conversation because things start to get rough for Houston. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Big Sarge,
what's going on?
Unlike the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Steelers, the Texans stay relatively quiet at the trade deadline. The only move they made was trading Khalil Davis for a 2026 seventh round pick from San Fran, a move I wasn't expecting to see. I'm sure you wasn't really expecting to see. And he also added a couple of guys to the practice squad to boost up that offensive line a little bit. Sarge, I was told the Texans were looking to boost that interior offensive line spot, but they didn't via trade. Texans had approximately $6 million in cap space. It seems like other teams got better and the Texans kind of missed out.
I don't think that they missed out, John, because a lot of the people that made the moves that they made during, the trade deadline period, they got what they needed, and what a lot of teams needed was wide receivers. There's a lot of teams who needed wide receivers and defensive players. Two things that the Houston Texans do not need. They don't need another wide receiver. They don't need. I mean, John, we just spent a whole show talking about Mechie and Hutch and giving them their opportunities to be able to get out on the field and shine.
Well, I would say wide receiver, I agree. They need to utilize what they have in-house. But defensive players, I do think there was some room for Houston to upgrade at the cornerback position. But for me, Sarge, my thoughts were the guys that Houston could have possibly traded for, either now is just a name in Tre'Davious White, or the trading and asking cost was just too rich for the Houston Texans.
Why would you do that, John, if you're going to get back? So just look at the cornerback position. You're getting back Jeff Okudah. He was added back to the roster. He's coming off he's been out for a while. He hasn't played this year. So you're getting him back to be able to help out on the defensive side of the ball. You look at players like Zadarius Smith, who was traded, and then I don't
think he's really needed for Houston.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So, like, you look at those players, and then if you were going to go after a cornerback, the New Orleans Saints got a big haul, for the they got a big bag for their cornerback. They're all they're Pro Bowl cornerback. So, you're looking out there. There's nobody that was just going to say, "Hey, man, we know you need some interior offensive linemen. Here you go." Even, with the Browns, we're talking about that they had a couple of offensive linemen that they were willing to give up. But, I mean, now you're asking Nick to give up assets, future assets that you're going to need later on, and you don't have the money in order to go out and get those types. So when I look at the trade deadline, I think that, a lot of times people get caught up with the names.
Yeah.
And there was still a lot of names out there, but going out there, the abundance was just wide receivers. And so the Houston Texans didn't need that. I was surprised by the Khalil Davis move. I did not think that he would be gone away from this team. Somebody who contributed last year with out of the 402 snaps, he had 32 tackles, 16 solo, 2 pass deflections, 6 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks last season, but his presence on the field and what he was able to do was just totally different, which is why the Houston Texans, signed him to another year. You're talking about an undrafted free agent that came in and got an opportunity to to prove himself in training camp and actually made the active roster and got a chance to play. So, when I'm looking at it, I don't think that what Nick Caserio did was wrong. I think that what he did was he said, okay, this is what we have. I know what we need. I can address, let's just see what we can get through this year. And then we'll definitely address it in the offseason because there's nothing that I can do. Like he can't pull an interior offensive lineman out the air. He can't go abracadabra, hocus pocus and say, you know what?
Voila.
A left guard. Here you go, a center. Here you go, a right guard. And so Nick Caserio is a very, very smart man. So I think that him, staying pat, not going out there and, mortgaging off the franchise to go in and get a player that they could have 1 year. I think that he did the right thing.
Yeah, and to your point with Nick Caserio, I mean, he's a guy that I think it's important for him to protect those future picks and assets because we know Nick Caserio to do what? Trade up in the draft.
Yep.
He will trade up in the draft. And I think this may be one of the more crucial years considering they are going to need the best of the best offensive linemen that will be coming out in this upcoming year's draft and in free agency. They're going to also need to, look at who's a better playmaker coming out of this year's draft. Also look at the amount of hits that Joe Mixon has been taking. Maybe they look making sure that they have those mid to late round picks to address the running back group. And I 100% agree with you, man. When I looked at some of these moves that were made for the Houston Texans, well, across the NFL, rather, DeAndre Hopkins goes to Kansas City. That happened last week, but that's a part of the trade deadline. Some of the moves that were made, I think some of those moves were just too rich for the Texans to make.
Yeah.
It would have cost them their future. And of all the years to protect your future, I think it's 2025.
Yeah, for sure.
You kind of got a good nucleus in place. You got a great nucleus in place right now.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud still on a rookie deal. Tank Dell on a rookie deal. Nico Collins on one of the more team-friendlier deals we've seen a wide receiver take in the NFL. I mean, he's still top 10 and he's missed the last 4 games.
Yeah.
You got a nice tight end bunch on the defensive side. Will Anderson's on a rookie deal. You'll have Danielle Hunter sold up for another year. You got Jalen Petrie, Derek Stingley, the rookie Kalen Bullock. So you got some good nucleuses in those players locked up, young guys. But for me, guys get caught up in their name like Tre'Davious White. I can make a case that, he would have been needed if he was better at this point in his career. Yep. He's been a healthy scratch a couple of games this year. He's allowed 70% completion percentage and 4 TDs this year. And Houston needs a slot nickel cornerback. And I will say to that, hey, listen, we'll talk about is the roster good enough? Utilize who you have in the Miles Bryant and Desmond King, who's been on your practice squad.
Yeah.
So that's looking at White being signed. And if you wanted Houston to go out and trade for a receiver like Mike Williams, he's now in Pittsburgh. They gave up a 2025 fifth-round pick. That's normally the round we will see Nick Caserio draft a significant player. Henry T was a fifth-rounder, right? So, and not even just because Nico Collins is coming back, being a factor of why that wouldn't have been sensible, but mainly because, hey, listen, I think Mike Williams will be looking to get those targets. I don't think that's going to happen in Houston. If Houston can't draw up ways to get John Mitch and Xavier Hutchinson more involved, he's also a prototypical wide receiver that fits the mold that Nico Collins is, and you also have that player on this roster, in Xavier Hutchinson. But I also think Houston would want to get bit on another 1-year rental like they did with Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, and too, John, I also think that on the defensive side of the ball, excuse me, we're getting Jeff Okudah back. I wouldn't be surprised if D'Amico decided that he was going to see how much slot corner Ricky Kamara Lassiter can play.
Yeah, because when you look at Jeff, that's a great point. Jeff is a little bit longer, so physically he can do some things on the outside where Kamar can help you out a lot, especially how
because
he
he's very
crashes down
physical
and
too.
very physical.
He's very
Yeah,
physical. So you're going to get him one-on-one with some of those slot receivers. They may be quicker than him, but if he can, jam him up or play them how he needs to play them, I think that you could see Kamari Lassiter getting some of those. So that's why you don't go out and you don't make a move for
right.
another cornerback
Marshawn.
right now. Yeah. So you just, I feel like there are some things that the Houston Texans can fix internally without having to
Yeah,
go out and bring in, so going out and make a trade or going out and signing someone right now. Anything that they before the trade deadline, before making any types of trades, they got some internal stuff that if they fix the internal stuff, then you're looking at a team that's right back on track to be able to get to the AFC Championship game.
and if they do that, then we'll be looking at maybe his roster can be good enough to compete with the elite. So we'll be talking about that and more on the Locked On Texans podcast. Hey, Texan fans and Locked On Texans listeners and viewers, remember our great partner, Ultimate Pro Football GM? Well, they are back and they've added an amazing new game mode I need to tell you about. The game has all the steps, all the options to help you step into the shoes of a football franchise general manager and lead it to the glory. But now, the game has a new head coach career mode. So, on top of being able to build your dynasty by drafting players, signing free agents, which is what we've been talking about, and hiring coaches, now you also get to call offensive plays during the game as well. Additionally, you'll dig the new tools you can work with, such as individual training camps and upgrading negotiation systems. So, this fun and realistic game just got a whole lot better. You guys will be addicted to this game. I mean, I was. And I'm gonna tell you who else was, Sarge. Cody. And Cody don't even play games. He was checking it out. So
Yeah.
I want to let you guys know Ultimate Pro Football GM is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. Play on the go as you want, when you want to. And there's a special offer for our Locked On fans. Use promo code Locked On NFL, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your franchise. Make sure to get it, as this perk will jumpstart your play and give you the advantage you'll want in creating a dynasty. To download the game, visit ultimate-gm.com. That's ultimate-gm.com, or look it up in the App Store. Ultimate Pro Football GM. Start your dynasty today. And also, Texan fans, if you want to make this season exciting, make Sunday exciting, Prize Picks is a great way to get it kicked off, to kick off your excitement for the Detroit Lions Sunday night football game. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Also, Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so that your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup alive. So right now, if you want to check out this week's Prize Picks, you can pick the more than or less than on Jamar Chase if he'll get over 79.5 receiving yards, or I think Travis Kelce can, get back to his traditional form we've accustomed to see him being at, more than 59.5 receiving yards. So make it exciting, make Sunday fun, make Monday fun, make Thursday fun with Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code Locked On NFL. That's Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. Again, use promo code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. This is the 2024 trade deadline reaction show. If this is your first time watching the Locked On Texans podcast on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and comment on the page and let us know how you guys are feeling about the trade deadline decisions and moves. And I think, Big Sarge, you segued us perfect into this discussion. Internally,
Yep.
the Texans have some things they can work on.
For sure.
Right? And the question is this roster good enough? Depends on what enough is.
Yeah.
Good enough to win the AFC South. They did that last year. They made a bunch of moves in the offseason to improve this roster. So winning the AFC South isn't the end-all, be-all for this team. We know it's a deep playoff run. They are a better team than the Titans. They are a better team than the Jags. They've already swept the Colts. But looking at some of these other teams in the AFC that's gotten better, especially the Chiefs, who right now undefeated. The talk is, can they go undefeated on the year? Can the Houston Texans be a spoiler to those guys? The Steelers, I think, are a lot better and more of a threat with Russ than Justin Fields. And now they have Mike Williams, who I think will get the opportunity to contribute to that offense.
Yes.
Based on the improvements of the other teams, you can make the case the Texans are worse off now than before the trade deadline. And that's not necessarily good enough, Sarge.
Yeah, I think that the Houston Texans, the way that their that their roster is currently constructed, I think they are good enough, John. I think they are good enough to, of course, win the AFC South. We could put that to the side for now. And you don't want to.
They'll win the South.
But you also, we said the same thing about the Jacksonville Jaguars last year. So we don't want to just go ahead and hand the Houston Texans the AFC South. But at this point in time, they are in a great position to win the AFC South. And so we'll look at the AFC South. But John, with the way that this roster is constructed, with the talent that they have, that's not going to be good enough. And so I feel like they could win the AFC South. I feel like that they could win a wild card game. Right. It's getting past that AFC divisional round that they need to get over the hump. And John, in all honesty, I feel like if they can stay healthy, if the Houston Texans can stay healthy throughout the remainder of the season, I think that they can make it to the AFC divisional round. It just depends on who they meet in that round, because I looking now, if the play calling doesn't change, if the interior offensive line does not protect CJ, we're looking at if they have
and if CJ doesn't, I think he do a better job of getting the ball out quicker and getting other guys involved and not missing some of those routine throws. But to your point,
and so I can see them, like I said, I can see them winning a wild card game. But like, if you're talking about, are they ready to play a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers in the next round? Are they ready to play a team like the Baltimore Ravens in the next round? Are they ready to play a team like the Buffalo Bills in the next round? If we're talking about right now, no. But I think that if they stay healthy, and the one thing that I think that's going to help them out a lot, John, is staying healthy, calling better plays, getting better protection. But now they know that they're going into the tough part of their schedule. And we've seen the Houston Texans play up, even if it is just winning ugly. We've still seen them be able to take that next step and play to the level of their competition. And with the competition that they have, coming up here, and I know we're going to talk about that soon, I feel like the Houston Texans have enough to get it done. Because anytime you have CJ Stroud, and I'm talking about, John, this is a young man, whether he's being protected, whether he's not, he is giving his all. And if anytime you can get him on the field to give his all, and you're getting him his number one target back, I think that that's going to help them out a whole lot. So, I think that this roster is good enough, especially when you look on the defensive side of the ball. You got the number 2 defense in the league, and you're going to get healthy. You're going to get Jimmy Ward back. You're going to get, and a lot of people don't like the fact that you talk that when you say, well, you're going to get Jimmy Ward back. Yeah, Jimmy Ward brings that experience, and he knows that defense. And him being where he lines up, and Azeez being where they're on the same page on everything. He's also a physical safety. No, he's not good in coverage. We know that. Jimmy's been around for a long time, and he's lost a step or two. But you pair him with a Kalen Bullock, and you're looking at a safety, a safety duo that's good enough to survive while that defensive front seven does what it has to do. And so you're going to get, Mario Edwards coming back here pretty soon. I think he has one more game to sit out for. He'll be back. A healthy Will, a healthy Daniil, and just getting Azeez back in general. And like we said earlier, Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, I think I want to look at the positives and the bonus of this roster right now. And you make a good point. Both, Jimmy Ward, Azeez, I'm gonna throw Joe Mixon in this mix. I'm going to throw in Stephon Diggs won't be there to play, but he'll be in the locker room. So you look at the vocal leadership. You look at some of these guys that has had playoff success.
Yeah.
That matters. Houston didn't have a lot of like their best players last year, first year in the league.
Yep.
Or first year playing with a quarterback as dynamic as CJ Stroud. No playoff success for that team. Larry Tunsil went to the playoffs how many times before the demise here in Houston? So I think that matters. And I also look at the bonus of a defense in their 3 losses. In 2 of those losses, they held the Jets to 0 points in the first half. And going into that second half, the defense for the Houston Texans gave the Texans the lead, held the Green Bay Packers to 14 points in their first half.
Yeah.
So defensively, that's a bonus for this team. They're getting guys back, Jeff Okudah, and I do think, with Okudah coming back, that's going to give Houston, I think, some good leverage to move Kamari inside. That was a great point because I do think his physicality and how he can play around the line of scrimmage will help. He'll give Houston a little bit of what Jalen Petrie can give you, short areas, but then also he's a better cover guy.
Yeah.
So I like that. I think it does come down to soul searching.
Yep.
Right. They got to go to the altar. They gotta look in the mirror and say, listen, man, we could be better if we do things differently in the second half. Again, those 2 losses, 2 of the 3 losses, they had the lead going into the second half. And in those 2 games, they combined for, I want to say, 6 points in the second half.
Yeah. And that's the thing, John. So that's what I'm saying. Like the roster, if we're just looking at the roster, yes.
Because defensively, they give them a shot in each and every game.
So the roster is good enough. And I put it like this: the offensive side of the ball is good enough. They just have too many internal issues, starting with, of course, we know, with the play calling and the protection. You fix those things, John. I don't even think that you have to fix it 100%. If you could get it fixed 80%, if you can get the play calling fixed 80%, you can get the blocking 80%, the protection 80%. That's all CJ needs. But right now, John, they're functioning at like both aspects of that offense. They're functioning at like 40%. And so, yes, the roster is good enough. And that's why I'm saying, that's why Nick, they need to go out and I know that they lost a wide receiver in Stephon Diggs, a very good wide receiver, but no need to go out and give up the assets to get another one if you have that and you have CJ who just give him time.
Yeah, and I also think with this roster, because, we know the defense is going to give them a shot, but I also think, hey, listen, some of those guys that can't contribute to the defensive side of the ball, I'm not worrying about special teams.
Yeah.
Those guys you may need to move on from, and you may need to call up a Desmond King.
Yeah.
The relationship between Desmond King and the Houston Texans have been really weird the last couple of years.
It really has.
Very weird. But does he give you a better shot at success on 3rd and 4 right now than Jalen Petrie as a slot cornerback, as a nickel? I think so. Does he give you more opportunities to be dynamic over a what's my guy who got that chance to play the cornerback?
Ross.
Is he better than Ross right now? I think so. Hey, Miles Bryant is out there. He's been a successful nickel cornerback in this league. So does he give you a better shot? I think so. So I think
you said Desmond King gives you a better shot.
I think Desmond King and Miles Bryant can be better contributors to this defense than a D'Angelo Ross.
And real quick, Desmond King just had his second child, and you can see when I'm just talking to him, he's different as far as mindset is concerned. You can just see that he has a totally different outlook on a lot of things. And sometimes having a child will do that for you. I mean, I know we're talking about Houston Texans, but I mean, just look at the Houston Rockets and Jalen Green.
Yeah, and look at the Locked On Texans and John Hickman. But I think for Houston, I think loyalty has been a helper for them, but it's also been hurting them a little bit. They got to move on from some of them guys because now, Sarge and listeners, they're going into the tougher part of their schedule where You look at they had a Thursday night. Now they have a Monday night, a Sunday night. Sunday night is coming up. Monday night after that, primetime games, short weeks, 3 games in 10 days. You look at everything that's coming on, and they are playing the elite of the elites in the NFL. So we got to talk about moving on into the second year for the Texans. All right, Texan fans, this season has been electric, a little up and down, but it's been fun overall for a 6-3 team. There's no better way to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're ready to jump into the action versus the Lions showdown this Sunday, the spread is currently at 3.5 points. A tight game, but it could be prime for a Texans cover. And if you're feeling ambitious, consider those Texans Super Bowl odds that are sitting at plus 2,200. For fans who think this team could go all the way, that's a big reward for backing your squad right now. So new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets back if you win. FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NFL. Welcome back in, Locked On Texans listeners and viewers. So as before we close out today's show, just looking at the Houston Texans schedule, it gets a little bit it gets a little bit rough. Sunday night, Detroit. Here. Monday night, they got Dallas. Then you got Tennessee, division game. Always going to be tough, especially against Tennessee.
Jacksonville, number 1 defense in the league.
Number 1 defense in the league. Jacksonville after that on December 1st. They get a bye week, a late bye week in the year, but that may be perfect for them because after that, Miami, Kansas City, Baltimore on Christmas, 4 days after playing Kansas City on that Saturday.
In Kansas City.
And then you got
that Tennessee. Environment and that weather may be horrible at that time.
It's gonna be hard for the Houston Texans. And maybe they cap out at 10 games, maybe they get to 11. But I just want to say this as they move on to the second half of the year, Sarge, they need a statement win. What statement win has the Houston Texans had this year?
The Patriots
Bills. Are Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
The Buffalo Bills.
And they look good in there. They made Josh Allen look bad in that game.
They made, was it 9 of 20? Was that
something like that?
It was crazy. He only threw for 130 yards.
Yeah, like a 13%.
It was bad.
Maybe that was Anthony Richardson. But yes, that Buffalo Bills game is what I feel like that's their statement win this year.
They need a statement win on the second half. And I think the second half features, I mean, we're going to call him the third-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. I don't think there's no player in the NFL playing better than him. Or you're looking at the Kansas City Chiefs. They're looking to repeat. I think Detroit, Dallas, you definitely want to win that Dallas game, the battle of the Texans in terms of the state of Texas. That could be a statement win, but that's also a team that's struggling right now. They have their own issues internally and externally. Like their internal problems ain't led to 6 wins yet. So
from ownership on down.
So, we got to say it could be worse.
Yeah.
It could be worse.
You
could have a $60 million quarterback that's going to miss the next 4 games, and that offense is already stinking with him on the field, and they don't have a running game. It could be worse, Sarge. But,
No, go ahead.
No, I think the second half of the year, that's going to prove to the league and to the Texans fans whether or not this team could actually compete with the elites of the elites. Because granted, the Buffalo Bills was a statement game. They didn't have a Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
They were struggling to trying to find an identity without Stephon Diggs at that wide receiver position. And I think Cooper can open up some things not only for himself on that offense, but for the guys around him. So early statement win, but they need one on the second half of the schedule.
The thing about the Houston Texans, John, and even with the way that they've been playing here lately, the one thing that they always do, even outside of okay, so let's see the Minnesota Vikings. When the Minnesota Vikings blew them out, you're looking at a team who they got frustrated and flustered because of the penalties, and they had penalties and they had turnovers, and they were still competing, but they just got blew out. That's the only game that I can say that I haven't seen them compete. And so now you're going into this next part of the schedule, the second half of the schedule, and you're going up against the Detroit Lions, who, I know that the Kansas City Chiefs are undefeated, but the Detroit Lions are the best team in football. That's just, on both sides of the ball. And that's without Aiden Hutchinson, who's, their star defensive end who's out for the year. They still just find ways to get it done. But
their defense was out 3 starters, I think, Sunday, and they still got it done.
And so, so what you want to see, though, John, you want to see the Houston Texans compete. You don't want to see them, hold their head down. We know that they have the offensive deficiencies as far as the line is concerned. We've talked about that on numerous occasions now. And so, but you want to see them compete. And John, when I'm looking at the, teams like the Detroit Lions, I think that they're going to compete very well by getting Nico Collins back. I think that they can beat a Dallas Cowboys team. I think that they could beat a Miami team. I think that they could beat the Titans twice. I think they could beat Jacksonville. Jacksonville looks like they're ready to, have their whole season, look like they're ready to implode, and they look like they're ready to make some changes moving here forward. Because if I'm not mistaken, they traded their left tackle, correct?
Yeah, he's going to listen right now. Them tickets in Jacksonville right now, $18.
And so, look,
we can sponsor a family of 5 to go to the Jacksonville game right now.
Exactly. So now you're looking at, of course, we're looking at the Miami game, and as long as you can contain that speed, I think that the Houston Texans could be. So, like, we're still looking at games where the Houston Texans can win. There's a lot of people that have lost faith in them, but this is still a team that can compete. This is still a team that has a very good defense. Now, the one thing I think that what people will lose hope, though, John, is you're playing the Kansas City Chiefs and you're playing the Baltimore Ravens within 4 days of each other.
Tough.
That's very tough. And I know I'm not using this as an excuse, and I know people don't want to look at it this way, but even when you were going up against the New York Jets, you played on Sunday. You tried to practice Monday and Tuesday. You had to travel on Wednesday, and you're playing on Thursday. That is a quick turnaround. That's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to play on Saturday. Sunday, you're going to have off. You're going to try to practice Monday and Tuesday. Well, Monday, you're not going to practice Tuesday because you got a game on Wednesday. And so, but you're going up against 2 very elite type teams. And I know that the Kansas City Chiefs have had their issues as far as offense is concerned, not getting it going so much. But I mean, now you got D-Hop, a possession wide receiver, and you got Worthy, a speed wide receiver. So I just want them to be able to compete in those 2 games, even if they can find a split. I think that would be good for them, but they need that type of test going into the playoffs.
Yeah, because that's right around the time things will start kicking up. And you know what? For me, Sarge, I'm going to just keep it real quick. I need to see a CJ breakout game.
Yeah, yes.
Because this offense, listen, Davis Mill will probably get a miniature statue somewhere for what he was able to do against the Indianapolis Colts to end off that 2022 season. But this offense has been built for CJ Stroud in terms of personnel. Maybe not play calling yet, but personnel.
Exactly.
And so I don't think we've seen his statement game this year. And I think when you look at the best of the best, Brady versus Manning, Aaron Rodgers versus whoever Breeze, when you look at those quarterbacks going at it, quarterbacks normally elevate their game when they play the best of the best.
Yep.
And in this stretch, Jared Goff right now is one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Yes. Talent-wise, no, but what he's doing, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
Third in MVP. He should be third behind Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry as far as MVP is concerned.
I'm so glad you said Derrick Henry. I know we can't really talk about that, but I'm so glad you got Derrick Henry number 2 because I do as well. Yeah. But you got Jared Goff, you got Pat, you got Lamar.
Yep.
Yeah, I need to see one of those statement games versus one of those quarterbacks along with a dub. So that's what I'm looking at for this second half of the year. Thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. So I had fun today.
Me too, man. Me too.
I have fun, all things considered, and I think that we're gonna see this team respond. They had a break. They had an additional few days to figure some things out. Please,
hey John, can I ask you one more thing?
Yes, sir.
Just don't trade me, guy. Just don't trade me.
And thank you guys for watching today's episode of the Locked On Texans podcast. Please subscribe, like, and comment to the podcast on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. For all of our audio listeners, follow me on Twitter at John_Hickman12 and follow the Locked On Texans page at Locked On Texans.
And you can follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, peace.